And the next big issue would be that leadership is a social capital issue more than a human capital issue, in my mind, certainly. Because really, if you think of leadership as being something that's about yourself, that's something about making you better, that's satisfying something in you, then what you're probably missing is this tail end effect that leadership is supposed to have. And it's not necessarily to make you better, it's actually to make the environment better. So it is a social capital issue. It's something that as leaders we must focus on investing in, that leadership is about making the environment better and the people that exist within that environment. And let me give some quick dialectics, some paradigms that compete if you don't have a social capital view. And you would have the emergence of egoism in businesses, which is the idea that people do things towards their own end goals, to their own end states, and everything is aligned to those selfish end states, versus altruism. Well, one would be a human capital issue, that you aren't developing things for your own ends, or the other being a social capital issue, which is that you're doing it for altruistic reasons, you're doing to make it better for other people. Another paradigm, or another sort of dialectic you'd have, is the idea that leadership is a privilege or a right, that you're that talented, you're that good, that you are that special, that one has these skills and traits that the world is desperately in need of, a very Thomas Carlyle view of leadership. And again, the opposite end of that argument will be that leadership is in fact a service, like the moderate Santos that's served to lead. And that really raises an interesting point of what is the leadership about? Is it about the individual who's wearing the rank slide, or is it actually about the people whom that leader is leading? And I think that's the key point, that it actually is about the effect, it's about the tail end. And the last point I'll make about a dialectic with social capital is that if you do think it's about yourself and it's an intrinsic sort of human capital worth issue, that you tend to lead by the privilege of power. It tends to be something that's around exerting influence through telling directive means. And I don't necessarily mean being autocratic. I'm not talking about being autocratic. I'm talking about being directive, which is really about telling people where to go, what to do, using your technical knowledge, using your experience, and using basically your word as the means to lead people. And that they sort of follow that as being the panacea, they follow that as being, the raison d'être. But that's not necessarily right. It is the other end that's probably now, in the sort of postmodern 21st century, the most appropriate approach to leadership is one that's about impact of influence. How much influence are you having in people? And that influence is no longer hard power skills, which is around technocentric approaches. It's actually around people-centric approaches of, are you having a positive influence on them? Are you engaging, empowering them in order for them to develop, in order for them to spread the influence? And there's a great deal of sort of very wise thought on that. And I would say that these are sort of core components of leadership. I really do.